It's Wednesday, I fancy some fish and chips, and I've got a Honda Goldwing. So as I've said in previous videos, every time you ride a Goldwing it feels like a bit of an event, even if you're going for fish and chips. Now I've got a lot of fish and chip shops that I know out on the coast. I quite often go up to Aldeburgh, out to Mersey, but I thought, well, seeing as I've got this big old beast, I need to go a little bit further afield. And after a quick search, apparently one of the best fish and chip shops in East Anglia is Eric's Fish and Chips in Thornham, which is on the North Norfolk coast. That is about 2 hours 10 minutes, but the M11 looks like it's horrible, so I'm going to go cross country. And the idea is to go out for some fish and chips on a nice day, given it is October, but also show you exactly what the Goldwing is all about. There's a 1833 flat 6 engine, 24 valves, it's putting out about 124 horsepower, but along with that you've got a big dollop of torque. This does come with CarPlay and Android Auto. Sadly though, it's still not wireless. You do have to connect it into here, and it can still be a little bit temperamental. I plugged that in this morning, connected my headset, and everything was rosy. CarPlay started up, I planned my route on Waze, everything was good. I went back indoors to get some stuff, came back out, switched the bike back on. Headset showing as being connected, phone showing as being connected, but the CarPlay won't start up. Now that could be down to the cable, because I'm using a GoPro USB-A to USB-C. My iPhone cable is a USB-C to USB-C. You don't have that ability in here, you've only got a USB-A connector to connect your phone. I think if you don't use genuine cables, quite often it drops out, and that appears to be what it has done. So I'm using this satellite navigation, which gives you a chance to have a look at that. But the actual navigation here is pretty good. You've got your twisty wheel to roll backwards and forwards and enter it, and then the map itself is quite good. Got my next turn here in a quarter of a mile heading towards Sudbury, but as I get closer to that I'll have a little, there you go, another little box pops up on the side with a drilled down detailed view of it. So it works really well, and the dash is one of the things on this bike that I really like. Really clear, two big traditional gauges which I like, but I've got my range and everything else. I've got half a tank of fuel, I've got about 140 miles, so I should be able to get there with no problem. If I want to go into that screen, I've got either the controls on the handset here, which look a bit confusing but actually they're not, or I can use the ones on here, and that's where I've got my audio controls and the heated grips. It is a big old beast, this bike. It weighs in at 367 kilos, although obviously the centre of gravity is very low. The only time you really notice that weight is when you're moving it around, but you have got an electronic crawl mode here. I'll show you that a bit later on. You just literally pull the brake in, press that button, and then I've got triggers and I can roll it forwards and backwards, which really helps to manoeuvre it around. It's nearly 2.5 meters long. It's an absolute effortless bike to ride despite its bulk. It's still kind of relatively nimble considering its size, and it's not necessarily the weight that's the problem, it's the length and the wheelbase. You do have to think just a little bit more about some of those tightening corners just to be able to get the bike around, but you can really hustle it along. At the moment I'm in tour mode here, as you can see, but we've also got sport. You can see sport when I shut the throttle, that's already knocked it down 2 gears. Everything gets a bit more aggressive. I've got economy, which as you would expect just does it in as most frugal way as possible. Rain mode, and back to tour, and tour is what I use most often. Comfort's fantastic as well. The riding position is brilliant. The bars nice and wide, but they sit quite close, so you've got a very relaxed bend. The pegs are low enough that I've kind of got a 90-degree bend in my legs. That's really comfortable, and the seat is just a revelation. Broad and wide and comfortable. It is like an armchair. Obviously on this one, the bagger version, you don't have the big passenger seat. You've still got a huge pillion seat, and you can fit backrests to this as well, but as I very rarely or almost never take a pillion, it didn't really make sense to take one of those, so Honda very kindly lent me the bagger. And I really like this colour scheme. This is a matte armoured metallic green. It looks fantastic in this. It is just an awesome looking bike as well. So on the journey up I've got a lot of this. Hopefully not a lot of sitting behind lorries, but I've got sort of twisty routes getting onto some bigger sort of A roads. The sun is out, the temperature is rising, and it's going to be a good ride. Everything about this bike is big. The length, the wheelbase, the weight, the power, the torque, and the tyres. So you've got a 130/70/18 on the front and a 200 section 55 profile 16-inch tyre on the rear. A couple of Goldwings there, nice to see those out. But when you're riding it, you just don't feel that bulk. It feels light, it feels responsive. And I say nimble. Can you ever call a Goldwing nimble? I don't know, but it certainly belies its weight. But there is a lot that's required to obviously pull this to a stop. So when you look at the brakes on the front, you've got twin 320mm discs with 6-pot calipers, and at the back it's just as meaty. You've got a 316mm disc, so just a little bit smaller in the rear, and that's got a 3-pot caliper that grabs that. They really are superb brakes, but it's a fun thing to ride. That's the thing. It's comfortable, you can do a lot with it, but it's also fun. It's not a boring motorway mile muncher. It will do that all day long in supreme comfort, but once you get into these kind of sweeping curves, it's just an absolute pleasure to ride. Everything's just so smooth and comfortable, and you just waft around on it. And that 6-cylinder engine is just well, chef's kiss. Wow, it's superb. When people say magic carpet ride, this genuinely does have one of those. We're just on the outskirts of Sudbury, which always makes me think of Monty Python. If you've watched The Meaning of Life, where some boys have been found rubbing linseed oil into the school cormorant.
Now, some of you may feel that the cormorant does not play an important part in the life of the school, but I would remind you that it was presented to us by the corporation of the town of Sudbury to commemorate Empire Day, when we try to remember the names of all those from the Sudbury area who so gallantly gave their lives to keep China British.
Let's get that screen down and get a little bit more airflow. That actually is very effective, the screen. In that position, I've got already a nice level of airflow coming through to help cool me down on what is a warm day. It's now hitting 19 degrees, unseasonably warm. Once the speed picks up and you pop the screen into its highest position, then you get a decent amount of coverage, and I can ride along at motorway speeds with the visor open without any problems. And you've got this little bit here as well that pops up, and what that does is just the air that comes up from underneath the screen, it directly pushes it towards you as the rider. So as you can see, pootling around town, you just, all that torque load down, you're just gently rolling onto that. The bike is extremely well balanced. This is a little village that I've been to quite a few times, but the interesting name is called Bradfield Combust, and I don't know why it's called that. I will look it up for you.
It's history time. So the name Bradfield Combust is believed to derive from an incident in late 1327 when Bradfield Hall was burnt to the ground.
Let's do this. Great.
At the time, that was owned by the Crown and a young Edward III. However, there is evidence of another hall which was inside the abbey at Bury St Edmunds, and that is also reported to have been burnt down during the same insurrection. So origins of that name are a little bit confused. The village is also mentioned in the Domesday Book under the name of Bradfella Manor, which is Old English for open field or open land. That means the village existed before the conquest and was likely owned by Ulfketel, apologies for the pronunciation, who was Saxon king of the East Angles. And records show that the settlement was actually referred to as Bradfeld Combuster in 1302. So obviously that means that the naming of that town didn't come from the 1327 insurrection of either the Abbey or Bardfield Hall on that site. So the fact that it's referred to as that name as early as 1302, and again it appears in the 15th century records as Brent Bradfield or Burnt Bradfield if you translate that into modern English, there was obviously some kind of fire or some kind of issue that happened. Exactly where and when, we don't know, but it's certainly got an interesting name.
You can probably hear not a lot of wind noise on my helmet with that screen in position there. If I put it up, whether you can actually hear the noticeable difference that creates. And I've now got a little bubble of clean air that I can sit in, to the point that at 60 miles an hour and now 70 miles an hour I can ride along quite happily with my visor up. I'm not getting battered in the face with wind. It's getting a little bit cloudy compared to this morning. I'm kind of moving into the cloud and away from the sunshine, but it's still showing 20 degrees on the thermometer, and you can't argue about that for October, can you? This is Swaffham. Nice old market town. This is definitely a road to make a note of, the B1454 out to Hunstanton. If you get a beautiful day and it's not busy, it's just a fantastic slither of tarmac that cuts across the North Norfolk coast, and it's a beautiful ride. Here we go, Drove Orchard. This should be Eric's. There is Eric's Fish and Chips right there. Yeah, oh yeah. There you go, got there eventually. Nice, because I am starving. This is the famous, in this part of the world anyway, Eric's Fish and Chips. Nice little seating area outside here. Some expectant dogs, and I'm starving, so I'm going to go and see what we've got to eat. Obviously it's now quite late on a Wednesday, so it is quiet in here, but there's a good looking a range of stuff there, and I can already see what I'm going to have.
Right.
Hiya.
With you in 1 sec. Do you want to take a seat? I'll come.
Yeah, I'll sit in this one here. Cool. I'll have the Japanese style fish burger, please.
Japanese fish burger? Yeah. Lovely.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. And yeah, as I said, fantastic ride on that bike. I'm just going to decide now whether I make the most of this weather and take a cross-country route back, or I go back on the motorway. I think you can probably gauge how good that bike is as a motorway slogger. I don't think I really need to demonstrate that. So given the weather's nice, I think I'll have fun and go back a scenic way. But first, food. And I picked here, normally I'd have haddock and chips, I'm that kind of guy. But as I'm riding a Honda, on the menu here, there is a fish burger Japanese style, which comes in a brioche bun with soy mayo, pickled mouli and bonito flakes. So in honour of my steed, that's what I've chosen. Let's see what it's like.
Oh my god, the Japanese fish burger and the small chips.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Wow. Right, then let's give this a go. Well, I've got a huge
That's good. And so the chips. I'm a happy boy. So, Eric's Fish and Chips. If you're in this part of the world, it's definitely a good place to come and stop. As you can see, there's plenty of parking, there's other bits and pieces here. Is it the best fish and chips in East Anglia? Well, that's quite a claim. Although, to be fair, these guys don't claim it themselves. This is from independent reviews, but there's others that will fight them on that, and I'm still a big fan of the fish and chip shop in Aldborough by the seafront. But anyway, I'm going to make my way home, but what I thought I would do whilst I'm here is show you that creeper mode. So I'm sat here, engine running in neutral. If I hold the brake, press that, and now I've got a backwards and a forwards button that will move the bike. And gravel car parks like this, although it has got a netting underneath, are notorious for big bikes trying to push them. And so I can just press that button there, and I've got reverse, and all I'm using my feet for, because it is quite loose underfoot, is just to balance. I'm not having to push the bike back, which is normally where the problems start when you slip. And if I want to, I can use the same lever on the front there, and it just creeps. Very, very handy. And then to take it off again, hold the brake lever, hit that button, it's off. I can put it into drive, and away we go. And I'm going to have to go and find some petrol. But what a fantastic day to have out in the middle of October. 20 degrees, sunshine. I'm wearing mesh gloves, for God's sake. Fantastic. And what a bike to do it on. But anyway, let's crack on, and I'll wrap up and give you the final thoughts and pricing and all that sort of stuff back home at Cave. So there you go, I made it back with just about daylight. Just over 250 miles covered today, about 6 hours in the saddle with a real mix of roads. But of course this is a little bit extreme just to go out and get fish and chips. But I wanted to show you what this is like in mixed road conditions. And obviously with the time that I've got on this bike, I didn't have time to disappear across Europe. It is, of course, a fantastic mile muncher. It's a great cross-continental tourer. And let me tell you, this bike will happily sit at 100 miles an hour at 3,500 revs for hour after hour if you're in the right location. An absolutely fantastic beast. Yep, it's big, but you can maneuver it around pretty easily. You've got that backwards and forwards creep mode on there to help you on tricky car parks and stuff like that, as you've seen. It really is a fantastic piece of kit. The other thing that's a little bit extreme to go and get fish and chips, of course, is the cost. This bike will set you back £25,649. That is a big wedge of cash for a motorcycle, but this is a big wedge of motorcycle you couldn't want for anything else. You can ride in superb comfort. You've got space for luggage. Admittedly, they're not massive, but if you pack light, you can pack for a weekend away. Unfortunately, they don't take a helmet, but outside of that, it's a perfect big touring machine, particularly if you're two up. Have I got any negatives with it? Well, not really. The one thing that does bug me is still the Carplay is not wireless. That would be useful. If you've got the right cable, or use a dongle as I have done with my Africa Twin, it's not really any problem. But having said that, the sat-nav that was on this as standard is pretty bloody good. So I've had a great day riding. The weather's been fantastic. The bike has been excellent. I had lovely fish and chips. Was it the best fish and chips in East Anglia? No, I don't think it was, if I'm being honest, but it was very, very good. And if you're in that part of the world, definitely worth stopping by. That is, if you don't want to go and eat your fish and chips where you traditionally do it, down by the seaside. So if you've got any questions about the bike, let me know in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And all it leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye. It's getting dark, isn't it?